You'll always be nothing, black girl." Blake Harrison yanked Maya's arms wide and slammed them against the wooden frame. The rope cut into her wrists until blood ran down her fingers. Behind her, 200 students raised their phones, recording, laughing, cheering. "Please," Maya sobbed. "Please stop." Blake uncapped a black marker and pressed it to her forehead. Slow, deliberate. He wanted her to feel every stroke. L-I-A-R. She wanted attention, he announced to the crowd. Now she's got it. She was 17, honor student, debate champion, daughter of a nurse who worked double shifts so Maya could have a future. And now she hung from an oak tree like an animal while the whole school watched. No teachers came. No adults stopped it. The people who should have protected her had vanished, and that was no accident. But what Blake didn't know was that someone was recording from above. A drone. Capturing everything. And what happened next would destroy careers and legacies and tear this town apart. Subscribe now and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Maya's story travels. This is how it all began. 3 days before the picnic, Maya Collins made a choice that would nearly cost her everything. She refused to bow. Blake Harrison owned Oak Ridge High. Everyone knew it. His father was the mayor. His great-uncle was Principal Crawford. Teachers smiled when he passed. Students moved out of his way. The weak learned to empty their pockets before he even asked. He walked through the cafeteria that Tuesday with Tyler Hayes and Connor Mills flanking him like attack dogs. 300 students sat at their tables, but not one of them looked up. Not one of them made eye contact. That was the first rule of Oak Ridge. Don't let Blake notice you. "Contributions," Blake announced, stopping at a freshman table. He snapped his fingers. "Let's go. Lunch money. Now." A skinny kid with glasses fumbled through his pockets. His hands shook so badly he dropped the first dollar twice. Blake watched him struggle, smiled, let him sweat. $4. The kid finally managed, holding out crumpled bills. "That's all I have. I swear." Blake took the money slowly, smoothed each bill, tucked them into his jacket pocket. Then he grabbed the kid's face and squeezed hard enough to leave marks. "Good boy. See how easy that was?" He shoved the kid backward. The chair scraped. The kid hit the floor. The cafeteria stayed silent. Tyler laughed. Connor cracked his knuckles. Blake scanned the room for his next target. His eyes landed on Maya. She sat alone by the window cutting an apple into precise slices. Head down, shoulders tight. Pretending she didn't see what just happened. Pretending she didn't exist. Blake's smile sharpened. "Well, well," he said. "The scholarship girl." He started walking toward her table. Tyler and Connor followed. Maya heard them coming. She always heard them coming. 3 years at this school had taught her to track Blake Harrison by the silence that preceded him, the way conversations died, the way eyes dropped, the way the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. "Keep your head down, baby. No trouble. Nothing that costs us everything." So Maya kept cutting. 1 slice, 2, 3. Blake's shadow fell across her tray. "Hey, Collins." She didn't look up. "Blake." "That's it. Just my name." He grabbed a chair, spun it around, straddled it inches from her face. "No good afternoon. No, how can I help you, sir?" "Good afternoon." "Better." He reached across and plucked an apple slice from her tray, bit into it slowly, letting juice run down his chin. Good apple. Food bank special." Tyler and Connor laughed on cue. Maya's grip tightened on her knife. She counted in her head. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. "I bought it myself." "With what money?" "Your mama's tips from scrubbing toilets." Something hot flashed through Maya's chest. 3 years of swallowed insults. 3 years of smiling when they called her charity case and diversity hire, and worse. 3 years of working twice as hard just to be told she was lucky. But she kept her voice flat. My mother's a nurse. Same thing. Blake leaned closer. His cologne was expensive. His breath was not. You know what I've been thinking about, Collins? I've been thinking about how you walk around here like you belong. Like you're one of us. But you're not. You're here because someone felt sorry for you. You're here because my family's money pays for your little scholarship. I'm here because I earned it. Blake's smile flickered. Just for a second, a crack in the mask. Then it came back wider, colder. Earned it. He laughed. That's cute. You really believe that, don't you? He gestured around the cafeteria. Look around. This is my school. My family built this school. Every trophy in those cases, my grandfather donated them. Every teacher in these halls. They work for my uncle. Every student in these seats. He leaned in until his lips nearly touched her ear. They belong to me, including you. Maya's hands trembled. Her knife scraped against the apple. I don't belong to anyone. The cafeteria went quiet. Blake pulled back. His eyes had changed. The performance was gone. What remained was something she'd never seen before, something cold and reptilian and utterly without mercy. What did you just say? I said, I don't belong to anyone. Maya's voice came out stronger than she expected, especially not to you. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered. Someone else grabbed their phone. Nobody at Oak Ridge talked back to Blake Harrison. Nobody. Tyler stepped forward. Did this girl just... Shut up. Blake didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on Maya. Say that again. You heard me? Yeah, I did. He stood slowly. I just wanted to make sure you heard yourself. Because those words just cost you everything. He reached across the table and flipped her tray. Apple slices scattered. Her water cup tumbled, and the liquid splashed directly onto Blake's pristine white sneakers. For one terrible second, nobody breathed. Blake stared at his shoes. The water had left dark streaks across the leather. A single ice cube rested on his laces. When he looked up, his face had gone white with rage. Those are $400 shoes. Then you shouldn't have knocked over my water. You think this is funny? I think you did that to yourself. Connor grabbed her arm. Watch your mouth. Get off me. Maya yanked free and stood so fast her chair crashed backward. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me. The cafeteria had gone completely still. 300 students watched. 300 phones recorded. 300 witnesses saw Maya Collins do what no one else had ever dared. She stood her ground. Blake's jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. He took one step toward her, then another. You know what I think. His voice was soft now. Dangerous. I think you forgot who you're talking to. I think you forgot that I can end you with a phone call. Your scholarship gone. Your college applications shredded. Your mama's job at County General. Let me tell you something about County General. My father sits on the board. One word from me and she's unemployed. Is that what you want? Maya's stomach dropped. Her mother's face flashed through her mind. Tired eyes, worn hands, the gray spreading through her hair. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? Blake smiled. Try me. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. The whole cafeteria held its breath. Then Blake leaned in close, so close she could smell the apple on his breath. But I'm feeling generous today, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to get on your knees, right here, right now, and you're going to apologize for disrespecting me. You're going to say, I'm sorry, Blake, I forgot my place. And then maybe I'll let this go. Maya looked at the floor, at her scattered apple slices, at the water pooling around Blake's expensive shoes. She looked at the crowd, at the phones, at the faces, some smirking, some scared, most carefully blank. She looked at Tyler and Connor waiting to grab her if she ran, and she made a choice. No. Blake blinked. What? I said no. Maya lifted her chin. I'm not apologizing. I'm not getting on my knees. And I'm not afraid of you. She was lying about that last part. She was terrified. Her heart hammered so hard she could barely breathe. But she'd rather die on her feet than live on her knees. Something shifted in Blake's eyes. The rage condensed into something worse. Something patient. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, I gave you a chance. Remember that. He stepped back, brushing imaginary dust from his jacket. The performance snapped back into place, the easy smile, the relaxed shoulders. But his eyes stayed dead. The annual picnic is in 3 days, he announced loud enough for the whole cafeteria to hear. Lake Meadow Park, mandatory attendance, and I promise you all. He looked directly at Maya. It's going to be unforgettable. He walked away. Tyler and Connor followed. The crowd parted like water around a shark. Maya stood frozen, her legs shaking so badly she thought they might give out. A girl from her history class caught her eye, mouthed 2 words, "You're dead." That night, Maya didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The look in Blake's eyes, the threat against her mother, the promise of something terrible waiting at the picnic. She thought about telling her mother, about begging to stay home, about running away and never looking back, but she knew it wouldn't matter. Blake Harrison didn't make empty threats. If she didn't show up at the picnic, he would come for her somewhere else. At school, at home, at her mother's hospital. There was no escape. Not from him. Around 2 a.m. her phone buzzed. Unknown number. 1 message. Dead girl walking. Maya threw her phone across the room. The next 2 days were torture. At her locker, she found notes shoved through the vents. R.I.P. Maya. Hope you can swim. 3 days left. In class, Tyler sat directly behind her, breathing on her neck, whispering, "Tick-tock, Collins, tick-tock." In the hallways, students she'd known for 3 years suddenly couldn't see her. They walked past like she was invisible, changed direction when she approached, pretended to be on their phones when she tried to say hello. Oak Ridge had already decided Maya Collins was a sacrifice. The night before the picnic, her mother came home late, exhausted. She microwaved leftover soup and sat across from Maya at their tiny kitchen table. "You okay, baby? You've been quiet all week." Maya looked at her mother's hands, cracked from washing, red from chemicals, worn from 16 years of working doubles so Maya could have a future. She thought about Blake's threat. 1 phone call, that's all it would take. "I'm fine," Maya said. "Just tired." "The picnic's tomorrow, right? You used to love those." "Yeah, the picnic." Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. 3 more months, baby. Just 3 more months until graduation. Then college. Then everything we've worked for. Just keep your head down a little longer. Can you do that?" Maya forced a smile. "I can do that." But even as she said it, she knew she was lying. Something was waiting for her at Lake Meadow Park. Something Blake had planned. Something that would make the cafeteria confrontation look like a friendly chat. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. The morning of the picnic dawned gray and heavy. Maya woke before sunrise. She hadn't slept more than an hour all night. Her hands shook when she tried to button her shirt. Her stomach churned so violently she couldn't eat breakfast. "You look pale," her mother said. "Maybe you should stay home." Yes. Please let me stay home. Please don't make me go." But Maya thought about the threat, about her mother's job, about what Blake would do if she didn't show up. "I'm fine," she said. "Just nervous about a test." The yellow school bus was loud with excitement. Students laughing, music playing, the chaotic energy of freedom from classrooms. Maya sat in the front row, pressed against the window, making herself as small as possible. Blake was in the back. She could hear his voice carrying over the noise. Couldn't make out the words, but she heard the laughter that followed. Felt the glances sliding toward her seat. She was the punchline. She just didn't know the joke yet. Darius Washington sat 3 rows behind her. He watched Maya grip the seat in front of her until her knuckles went white. Watched her flinch every time Blake's voice rose. Watched her eyes dart to the emergency exit like she was calculating escape routes. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself for years. His mother cleaned houses for wealthy families, including the Harrisons. One complaint, and she'd lose half her clients. One word from Blake, and they'd be out on the street. So Darius had learned the same lesson Maya had. Keep your head down. Don't be seen. Survive. But he remembered something from 2 years ago. A bad week. His mother in the hospital. His world falling apart. Maya had found him crying in an empty classroom. She hadn't asked questions, hadn't offered pity. She'd just sat down, pulled out her notebook and said, "Biology test next week. Want to study together?" For 3 hours she'd helped him, and when he finally broke down and told her about his mother, she'd listened. Really listened. Then she'd said 5 words he'd never forgotten. "You're not alone, Darius." Now watching her sit rigid with terror, he wondered if anyone had ever said those words to her. Lake Meadow Park, spread out green and bright under the heavy sky. Students poured off the buses, scattering toward food tables and game stations. For a moment, it almost looked normal. Almost looked safe. Maya found a spot under an old oak tree. Sat with her back against the trunk. Tried to disappear. 1 hour passed. Nothing happened. She ate the sandwich her mother had packed. Watched games in the distance. Let herself believe for just a moment that maybe Blake had been bluffing. Maybe it was all talk. Maybe she would survive this day. Then the announcement crackled through the loudspeakers. "All faculty to the main lodge immediately. Emergency staff meeting. Students, please remain in the picnic area." Maya's blood went cold. She watched the teachers walk away. 12 of them. 24. All filing toward a building on the far side of the park, leaving 200 students completely unsupervised. One teacher, Ms. Patterson from English, glanced back. Her eyes met Maya's. For 1 second, Maya saw something there. Recognition. Maybe even concern. Then Ms. Patterson turned and kept walking. The adults were gone. And Blake's crew was moving. They emerged from the crowd like predators circling prey. Tyler first, then Connor, then 3 more boys Maya half recognized from the football team. They spread out casually, cutting off her escape routes. Blake appeared last. He walked slowly, hands in his pockets, smiling that perfect smile. Students parted for him. Some whispered, some pulled out phones. Maya stood. Her back hit the oak tree. "Hey, Collins." Blake stopped 10 feet away. "Beautiful day, right? Leave me alone." "Leave you alone." He laughed. "But we haven't even started yet." Tyler and Connor moved closer. More students gathered behind them. 50. 100. A crowd forming, drawn by the smell of blood. "I've been thinking about our little conversation," Blake continued. "About how you embarrassed me in front of the whole school. About those things you said." His smile widened. "And I realized something. I gave you a chance to apologize, a chance to make it right, and you threw it in my face. Blake, so now," he cracked his neck, "now you're going to learn what happens when people forget their place." Maya tried to run. Tyler caught her arm and wrenched it backward. She screamed. Connor grabbed her other arm. More hands seized her legs, her waist, her hair. "Get off me!" She fought with everything she had. Kicked, bit, scratched. Her shoe connected with someone's shin. Her elbow cracked against a jaw. But there were too many. Too strong. Too coordinated. They dragged her toward the oak tree. "Her phone," Blake ordered. "Get her phone." Someone ripped it from her pocket. Tyler snatched it and held it up, grinning. "Please!" Maya gasped. "Please, that's my only—" Tyler threw it into the lake. The splash was final. "Oops." He shrugged. Butterfingers. Maya's scream tore through the afternoon. Raw, primal, desperate. No one came. She looked at the crowd. 200 students. Phones raised. Recording. Some laughing. Some frozen. But not one of them moved to help. Blake pulled something from his backpack. Rope. Thick and rough and old. "You know what this reminds me of?" he said, uncoiling it slowly. "Those pictures from history class. The ones you're always writing essays about. The legacy of racial terror in America." He smiled. "Consider this a living history lesson." "No." Maya thrashed against the hands holding her. "No. You can't. I can do whatever I want." Blake's voice went flat. "My family built this town. My family owns this school. And nobody tells me no." They wrestled her against a weathered wooden frame propped against the oak. Tyler yanked her arms wide. Connor tied her wrists to the beams. The rope scraped her skin raw with every knot. "Blake?" A girl's voice from the crowd. Uncertain. "Blake, maybe we shouldn't—" "Shut up." He didn't even look. "Anyone who has a problem can leave, or they can join her." Nobody left. They tied her ankles next, spread her legs wide. Then Blake stepped back, admiring his work. "Almost perfect. Just needs one more thing." He pulled a strip of dirty cloth from his pocket. "Open wide." The blindfold went over her eyes. Tight. Suffocating. The world disappeared. Maya couldn't see. Could barely breathe. Could only hear the laughter, the whispers, the endless clicking of phones. "Please," she was sobbing now. "Somebody please help me." "Nobody's coming." Blake's voice was right beside her ear. "You're all alone, Collins, just like you've always been." She felt something cold press against her forehead. A marker tip. Slow. Deliberate. He wanted her to feel every stroke. "Ladies and gentlemen," Blake's voice rose, playing to the crowd. "May I present today's main attraction?" Some people think they're special. Some people think they can say whatever they want without consequences. So let's teach them a lesson they'll never forget. Cheers erupted. Maya hung in her ropes, body shaking, soul shattering. She thought about her mother, about 16 years of sacrifice, about every dream they'd shared, every prayer they'd whispered, every promise they'd made. And now this. This was how it ended. Strung up like an animal. Humiliated. Destroyed. Erased. "Liar," Blake announced, stepping back. Right there on her forehead. She wanted to be seen. Now she's seen. The crowd roared, and then a voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "What the hell is going on here?" The laughter died. Maya couldn't see, but she felt the shift. The sudden tension. The collective intake of breath. "I said, what the hell is going on?" Heavy footsteps, coming closer, the crowd parting. Blake's voice came back, but different now, surprised. "Darius, what do you think you're—" "I'm stopping this." Darius Washington had spent his entire life being invisible. He'd learned it young, how to fold himself into corners, how to become part of the furniture, how to survive by never being noticed. But not today. Today, he walked straight through the crowd, straight toward Blake Harrison, straight toward the girl who'd told him once that he wasn't alone. "Step back, Washington." Blake's voice tried for contempt, but landed on uncertainty. "This isn't your business." "I'm making it my business." "You," Blake laughed, but it sounded forced. "The janitor's kid. What are you gonna do?" "Whatever I have to." Darius kept walking. Tyler moved to block him. Darius didn't slow down. "Your mom cleans my house," Blake called after him. "One word from me, and she's done. You understand, done." Darius stopped. For a long moment he didn't move, didn't speak. The weight of that threat pressed down on him like a physical thing. His mother, her tired eyes, her worn hands, everything she'd sacrificed so he could have a chance. Blake's smile returned. Yeah, that's what I thought. Walk away, Darius, while you still can. Darius turned around and looked Blake Harrison dead in the eyes. No! The word fell like a bomb. You think I don't know what you can do to me? Darius's voice was shaking, but he didn't stop. You think I don't know my mom could lose everything I know? I've known my whole life. That's why I never said anything. That's why I watched you hurt people and pretended not to see. He started walking toward Maya again. But I'm done pretending. Get him! Blake shouted. Somebody grab him! Tyler lunged. Darius sidestepped. Connor swung. Darius ducked. And then he was at Maya's side, fingers tearing at the blindfold. I got you, he said. You're not alone. The cloth fell away. Light flooded Maya's vision, blinding, painful, beautiful. She saw Darius's face. Saw fear there. Yes, but something stronger. Something that looked like hope. Look around, Darius shouted, turning to face the crowd. Look at her. Look at what they did. Look at what you're recording. Some students lowered their phones. Some stepped back. How many of you has Blake hurt? How many of you has he robbed, threatened, humiliated? Darius's voice grew louder, stronger. You think staying quiet keeps you safe? This is what quiet looks like. This girl said, no, and look what happened to her. A murmur spread through the crowd. If you walk away right now, Darius continued, you're telling them it's okay. You're saying, we deserve this. Is that what you believe, is it? Blake's face had gone purple. Shut him up. Anyone who stops him gets $200 cash. For one terrible moment, nobody moved. Then, no. A girl stepped forward. Tall, black, eyes blazing. I'm with him. Then a boy from the chess club. Then two more girls. Then a senior who'd been shaken down for 3 years straight. One by one they moved. Not running, not attacking, just stepping forward, choosing a side. This is ridiculous, Blake screamed. Do you people know who I am? Yeah. Darius was already working on the ropes binding Maya's wrists. You're the guy who's about to learn that nobody is untouchable. Tyler charged at Darius. A senior stepped into his path and shoved him backward. Connor tried to grab Maya. 3 girls pulled him away. The clearing erupted into chaos, not violence exactly, but resistance. Bodies blocking, hands pushing, voices rising, and in the middle of it all, Darius freed Maya's wrists. She collapsed against him, sobbing, shaking, barely able to stand. The word liar still marked her forehead. Her wrists were raw and bleeding. But she was free. I got you, Darius said again. I got you. Blake stood alone at the edge of the chaos, watching his kingdom crumble. Tyler and Connor had disappeared into the crowd. His other followers had scattered. For the first time in his life, no one was coming to save him. This isn't over, he snarled. My father, your father isn't here. Darius didn't even look at him. And neither is mine. It's just us. It's always been just us. And we're done being afraid. A siren wailed in the distance. Blake's face went white. Someone called the cops, a voice said. Someone actually called the cops. Blake turned and ran. But he didn't get far. Because at the edge of the clearing, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall, gray-haired, wearing a faded military jacket. Mr. Patterson, the groundskeeper, the Marine veteran everyone ignored. He was holding a shotgun. Going somewhere, son? Blake froze. I saw the whole thing. Patterson's voice was calm, deadly. Every second. And I've got something else too. He held up a small remote control. My nephew's in the tech club. Flies drones for extra credit. Been recording this whole picnic from above. He smiled, and it wasn't friendly. Congratulations, kid. You're about to be famous. Blake's knees buckled. The sirens grew louder, and Maya, bruised and bleeding and broken, but somehow still standing, realized something that would change everything. The drone had captured it all. Every second, every face, every crime. There would be no cover-up, no bought silence, no Harrison money making it disappear. For the first time in Oak Ridge history, the truth had witnesses that couldn't be threatened, and somewhere overhead, still circling, still recording, a camera drone caught the exact moment Blake Harrison's face crumbled, the moment he understood that his father's power, his uncle's protection, his family's legacy, none of it would be enough to save him from what was coming. The police cars appeared on the distant road. Maya looked at Darius, at the students who had finally stood up, at the blood on her wrists and the words still marked on her forehead. She should have felt relieved, should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt something colder. Something that whispered, "This isn't over. This is just the beginning." Because Blake Harrison had powerful friends. And powerful friends don't surrender quietly. The first police car screeched to a halt at 3:47 p.m. Officer Davis stepped out, hand on his holster, eyes scanning the chaos. Behind him, two more cruisers pulled up. Doors opened. Uniforms emerged. Maya still couldn't stand on her own. Darius held her upright, one arm around her waist, refusing to let go. The word liar screamed from her forehead in black marker. Blood dripped from her wrists onto the grass. "What the hell happened here?" Officer Davis demanded. 20 voices answered at once. "She attacked Blake. They tied her up like an animal. It was just a prank. He paid people to beat her." Mr. Patterson pushed through the crowd, shotgun now pointed at the ground, but still very visible. "I'll tell you what happened, officer. That boy..." He pointed at Blake, who was trying to shrink behind a group of students. "Organized an assault. Premeditated. Planned. I watched the whole thing from the maintenance shed, and I've got drone footage that shows every second." Blake's father arrived at 4:12 p.m. Mayor Harrison's black SUV tore across the grass and stopped inches from the police tape. He jumped out before the engine died, face red, veins bulging in his neck. "Where's my son? Where is my son?" He spotted Blake sitting in the back of a patrol car, hands cuffed, face pale with shock. The mayor stormed toward Officer Davis. "What is the meaning of this? Why is my son in handcuffs?" "Sir, your son is being detained for..." "I don't care what you think he did. I'm the mayor of this town. My brother-in-law is your chief of police. Uncuff him. Now." Officer Davis hesitated. His eyes flicked to the crowd, to the phone still recording, to Maya, bleeding and broken, held upright only by a boy who refused to leave her side. "Sir, with all due respect, there are witnesses. There's video evidence. I can't just..." "I said uncuff him." The other officers shifted uncomfortably. One reached for his radio, another looked away. But Davis didn't move. "No, sir." Mayor Harrison's face went purple. "Excuse me. I said no." Davis's voice was steady. "Whatever happens after today, right now in front of all these witnesses, I'm not releasing a suspect who just assaulted a minor. You want to fire me tomorrow, fine. But right now, your son stays in cuffs." For 5 long seconds, nobody breathed. Then Mayor Harrison smiled. It was worse than his anger. "You just ended your career, officer. I hope standing up for that girl was worth it." He pulled out his phone and walked away, already dialing. Principal Crawford arrived at 4:31 p.m. He came in his own car, not with the other teachers. His face was arranged in an expression of grave concern, but his eyes were calculating, already running damage control. "This is a tragedy," he announced to the gathered officers. "A complete tragedy, but I want to assure everyone that Oak Ridge High does not condone this kind of behavior." Maya's head snapped up. "You left. All the teachers left. There was an emergency meeting right when... Young lady, I understand you're upset, but you planned it. You cleared the area. You made sure there were no adults around when... That's a very serious accusation. Crawford's voice hardened. Officer, this girl is clearly in shock. She's making wild claims without any evidence. I would suggest taking her to the hospital before she says something she can't take back. Darius stepped forward. She's telling the truth. Blake announced it days ago. He said he was going to teach her a lesson at the picnic. He said there wouldn't be any teachers around to stop him. Everyone heard it. Crawford's eyes narrowed. And who are you, Darius Washington? Ah, your mother works for the Harrison family, doesn't she? Crawford's smile was thin and cold. I'd be very careful about what accusations you make, Mr. Washington. Very careful indeed. The threat landed like a slap. Darius's jaw tightened, but he didn't back down. My mother has nothing to do with this. I saw what happened. I stopped it. And there's drone footage that proves everything. Crawford's face flickered. Just for a second. Drone footage. Every second. Mr. Patterson stepped forward, holding up the memory card. Already made copies. Already sent one to my nephew's cloud storage. You want to make this disappear? Too late. It's already out there. For the first time, real fear crossed Crawford's eyes. But he recovered quickly. Well, we'll let the proper authorities sort through whatever footage exists. In the meantime, I think it's best if everyone goes home. This has been a traumatic day for all of us. My son is in handcuffs, Mayor Harrison shouted from across the clearing. And we'll get that sorted out immediately, Richard. Don't worry. Crawford turned to Officer Davis. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. The children were playing rough, things got out of hand. No need to blow this out of proportion. Davis looked at Maya, at her bloody wrists, at the word still marking her forehead. Sir, with respect, this isn't a misunderstanding, and it's not going away. Maya's mother arrived at 5:03 p.m. She came straight from the hospital, still wearing her scrubs, her car barely parked before she was running across the grass, screaming Maya's name. Maya, Maya, baby, where are you? Maya heard her mother's voice, and something inside her finally broke. The strength she'd been holding onto the wall she'd built to survive the last 2 hours, it all crumbled at once. Mom? Mrs. Collins pushed through the crowd and froze. Her daughter, her baby girl. Rope burns on her wrists, blood on her uniform, and that word, that horrible word scrawled across her forehead. Oh my God! She fell to her knees in front of Maya. Oh my God, baby, what did they do to you? What did they do? Maya collapsed into her mother's arms and sobbed. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. 3 years of silence. 3 years of swallowing pain. All of it came pouring out at once. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. I tried to keep my head down. I tried to be good. I tried... Shh, shh, baby. This isn't your fault. This is not your fault. Mrs. Collins held her daughter and rocked her like she was 5 years old again, like she could somehow protect her from a world that had already done its worst. Around them, the cleanup began. Students were sent to buses. Statements were taken. The crime scene tape went up around the oak tree, that twisted wooden frame still standing as evidence. But something else was happening too. Something Maya didn't see. Mayor Harrison was on his phone, pacing, making call after call. Principal Crawford was huddled with 2 other men in suits who had appeared from nowhere. Officers were being pulled aside for quiet conversations. The machine was waking up. And it was hungry. 8:00 p.m. The hospital. Maya sat on a thin mattress in the emergency room, a nurse cleaning the wounds on her wrists. The marker on her forehead had been scrubbed off, but she could still feel it there, like a brand burned into her skin. Her mother sat beside her, gripping her hand, refusing to let go. Mrs. Collins. They looked up. A man in a rumpled suit stood in the doorway, badge on his belt, tired eyes. I'm Detective Morrison. I need to ask your daughter some questions. Now, she just went through. I understand, ma'am, but the sooner we get her statement the better, before memories fade, before stories change. Mrs. Collins looked at Maya. Maya nodded slowly. Okay, but I'm staying. Of course. Detective Morrison pulled up a chair. He asked Maya to start from the beginning, to tell him everything. So she did. She told him about Blake in the cafeteria, about the water on his shoes, about the threat he whispered in her ear. She told him about the notes in her locker, about Tyler breathing down her neck, about the way the whole school had turned its back on her. She told him about the picnic, about the announcement that cleared out all the teachers, about being grabbed, dragged, tied to the frame, about the rope and the blindfold and the marker. She told him about Darius, about Mr. Patterson, about the drone. Morrison wrote everything down. His face stayed neutral, but Maya saw something flicker in his eyes. Anger, maybe, or disgust. Thank you, Maya. This is very helpful. He closed his notebook. I have to be honest with you. This case is going to be complicated. The Harrison family has a lot of influence in this town, a lot of friends in high places. What does that mean? Morrison hesitated. It means you should be prepared for pushback, for people trying to change the story, for... His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face changed. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped into the hallway. Through the door, Maya heard fragments of the conversation. Yes, Chief, I understand, but... No, there's clear evidence of... With all due respect, sir? Yes. Yes, I understand. When Morrison came back, something had shifted. His eyes were different, harder, more guarded. Is there a problem? Mrs. Collins asked. No, ma'am, no problem. I'll be in touch. He left without looking back. 9:30 p.m. The Collins apartment. Maya couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the rope, heard the laughter, saw the phones raised like weapons. Her mother sat in the kitchen staring at nothing, a cup of cold coffee in her hands. The phone rang. Mrs. Collins jumped, nearly knocking over her cup. She grabbed the phone, checked the caller ID. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Mom. But she already had. Hello? Maya watched her mother's face change, saw the color drain from her cheeks, saw her hand start to tremble. Who is this? Silence. I don't understand what you're... More silence. Please, we didn't do anything wrong. My daughter was the victim. She... The caller hung up. Mrs. Collins stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Mom? Mom, what did they say? Her mother's voice came out hollow. They said if we press charges, I'll lose my job. They said they know where I work. They said they know my schedule. They said accidents happen in hospitals all the time. Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. They threatened you. They said it would all go away if we just let it go, if we don't make trouble, if we sign something saying it was a misunderstanding. Mom, we can't. I know. Mrs. Collins's voice cracked. I know, baby. But they're not going to stop. These people, they have power. They have money. They have... The phone rang again. This time, Mrs. Collins didn't answer. They both just stared at it, watching it buzz on the counter like a living thing. When it finally stopped, Maya spoke. We need help, Mom. Real help. A lawyer or something. We can't afford a lawyer. Then we find one who doesn't charge. There has to be someone. Someone who isn't afraid of the Harrisons. Her mother laughed bitterly. In this town, everyone's afraid of the Harrisons. But Maya was already thinking. Already remembering something. A name she'd heard once whispered in the halls. A man who used to fight cases like this before the powerful families destroyed his career. There might be someone, she said, but we'd have to find him first. 10:00 a.m. The next morning, a different kind of battlefield. Maya and her mother sat in Principal Crawford's office. Across from them sat Crawford himself, flanked by two school board members and a woman in a sharp suit who introduced herself as the district's legal counsel. Mayor Harrison wasn't there, but his presence filled the room. "Let's be clear about why we're here," Crawford began. "Yesterday's incident was deeply troubling. Oak Ridge High takes any allegation of student misconduct very seriously." "Misconduct?" Mrs. Collins leaned forward. "My daughter was assaulted. She was tied up. She was... And that's certainly one interpretation of events." "Interpretation." The legal counsel held up a hand. "Mrs. Collins, please, let's keep this civil." Maya watched the adults in the room, watched the way they looked at each other, the subtle nods, the practiced expressions. They'd rehearsed this. Every word, every gesture, every pause. This wasn't a meeting, it was a performance. Crawford continued smoothly. "We've conducted a preliminary investigation, spoken to witnesses, reviewed what evidence is available." "The drone footage," Maya said. "Did you see the drone footage?" A flicker of annoyance crossed Crawford's face. "The authenticity of that footage is still being verified. Anyone can manipulate video these days." "It's not manipulated. It shows exactly what happened." "Maya," Crawford's voice hardened, "I'm trying to help you here. We all want what's best for everyone involved, including you. What's best for me is justice. What's best for you," the legal counsel cut in, "is thinking about your future, about college, about everything you've worked for." She opened a folder on the desk. "We've reviewed your file. Excellent grades, strong recommendations. A real chance at a top university." She paused. It would be a shame if a disciplinary action derailed all of that. Maya's blood went cold. "Disciplinary action?" Crawford nodded gravely. "Several witnesses have come forward claiming that you instigated yesterday's confrontation, that you've been harassing Blake Harrison for weeks, that the incident at the picnic was actually retaliation for your behavior." "That's a lie." "Is it?" Crawford pulled out a stack of papers. "We have statements here from 15 students who saw you throw water on Blake in the cafeteria, who saw you threaten him, who saw you... He grabbed me. He threatened my mother's job." "Maya," the legal counsel's voice was soft, dangerous. "I'm going to give you some advice, free of charge. This can go one of two ways. Either you agree that yesterday was a misunderstanding, that things got out of hand on both sides, and we all move on with our lives, or we pursue formal disciplinary action against you for harassment, for inciting violence, and for making false accusations against a fellow student." Mrs. Collins was shaking. "You can't do this. You can't punish her for being a victim." "We're not punishing anyone, Mrs. Collins. We're offering a path forward, a way to put this behind us." The counsel slid a document across the desk. "Sign this agreement and it all goes away. No charges, no expulsion, no marks on Maya's permanent record." Maya looked at the paper. The words swam before her eyes. "And what about Blake?" "What happens to him?" Crawford smiled. "Blake will receive appropriate counseling, community service, a chance to learn from his mistakes." "Counseling?" Maya's voice rose. "He tied me to a tree. Maya." Her mother grabbed her hand. "Baby, maybe we should just..." "No." Maya pulled away and stood. "No, Mom. We're not signing anything." The legal counsel sighed. "That's very disappointing, especially considering the alternative." "The alternative?" Crawford leaned forward. "The alternative is that we have no choice but to suspend you for 2 weeks for your role in yesterday's incident. And regrettably, we'll have to report this entire situation to the universities you've applied to." The room spun. "You'd destroy her future," Mrs. Collins whispered. "To protect him." "We're not protecting anyone, Mrs. Collins. We're following protocol, gathering facts, making difficult decisions." Crawford's eyes met Maya's. "I really wish you'd reconsider, for your sake, and for your mother's." He glanced at the legal counsel, who nodded slightly. Speaking of your mother, Mrs. Collins, we understand you work at County General, the hospital that receives significant funding from the Harrison Foundation. He let that sink in. I'm sure you're aware that budget decisions are coming up. Staff reductions. It would be terrible if your position were affected by any unfortunate publicity. Mrs. Collins' face crumpled. Maya watched her mother break, watched 16 years of sacrifice, of hope, of dreams crack and shatter in a single moment, and something inside Maya went cold. You're all monsters, she said quietly. Every single one of you. She took her mother's hand and walked out. 12:30 p.m. Outside the school. Darius was waiting on the front steps. He stood up when he saw Maya and her mother emerge. His face was tight, worried. What happened? They're suspending me, blaming me for what happened. Maya's voice was flat. Dead. They said if we don't sign some agreement, they'll report me to colleges. They'll get my mom fired. Darius's jaw clenched. That's insane. That's Oak Ridge. Mrs. Collins sank onto the steps, head in her hands. She'd stopped crying somewhere between Crawford's office and the door. Now there was just emptiness. There has to be something we can do, Darius said. The drone footage, Mr. Patterson's testimony. There are witnesses. Witnesses who are scared, Maya replied. Witnesses whose parents work for companies the Harrisons own. Witnesses who've already been told what story to tell. She sat down next to her mother. They've thought of everything. Not everything. A new voice. Maya looked up. An old man stood on the sidewalk, white hair, rumpled clothes, eyes that had seen too much and still kept looking. Who are you? Earl Mitchell. He walked toward them slowly, hands in his pockets. I used to be a lawyer, before the Harrisons decided I was a problem. Mrs. Collins raised her head. I've heard of you. They say you went crazy, lost everything. I did lose everything. My practice, my reputation, my... He stopped, swallowed. My daughter. She was in high school when some rich boys decided she was a target. Same as your girl. Nobody believed her either. Nobody fought for her. His voice cracked. I was too late. Too scared. Too convinced the system would protect her. What happened to her? Earl Mitchell's eyes went dark. She died. Pills. A month after they buried the case. He looked at Maya. I've spent 15 years drunk in an office that used to mean something. 15 years hiding from the memory of her face. But when I saw what they did to you on the news last night, something woke up. On the news? Someone leaked the drone footage. 30 seconds of it anyway. It's everywhere. The Harrisons are scrambling to contain it, but it's too late. The whole country saw what that boy did. Maya felt something stir in her chest. Something that might have been hope. Can you help us? Earl Mitchell straightened. For a moment, he looked like a different man. Younger, stronger, unbroken. I can't promise we'll win. These people have money, power, judges in their pockets. But I can promise you this, I will fight. Every single day. With everything I have left. He extended his hand. The question is, are you ready to fight too? Maya looked at her mother, at Darius, at this broken old man who'd lost everything and still came back. She took his hand. I'm ready. Earl nodded. Then we start now. Because what they're doing to you, the cover-up, the threats, the manipulation. That's not just wrong, it's criminal. And I've got 15 years of rage to pour into proving it. He turned and started walking. My office is 6 blocks east. It's not pretty, but it's got a door that locks. Let's go. Maya helped her mother up. Darius fell into step beside them. Behind them, Oak Ridge High loomed silent and cold. But for the first time since the picnic, Maya didn't feel alone. She felt dangerous. 3:00 p.m. Earl Mitchell's office. The place smelled like dust and old whiskey. Papers covered every surface. A single lamp flickered in the corner. But Earl had already cleared a space, already pulled out boxes of files, already started scribbling on a yellow legal pad. "Tell me everything," he said. "From the very beginning. Don't leave anything out." So Maya told him. The cafeteria, the threats, the picnic, the cover-up that morning. Every detail, every word, every moment. Earl listened without interrupting. When she finished, he sat back and let out a long breath. "Okay, here's what we're dealing with. They've got money. They've got power. They've got judges who owe them favors and cops on their payroll." He paused. "But we've got something they didn't count on." "What?" Earl smiled grimly. "The internet. That footage went viral before they could kill it. People are angry. Reporters are calling. The Harrisons can control this town, but they can't control the whole country." He pulled out a battered laptop. "Here's the plan. We don't just fight this in court. We fight it everywhere. We get Maya's story out there. We find other victims. We build a case so big that even the Harrisons can't make it disappear." Mrs. Collins spoke up, her voice trembling. "They threatened me. My job. They said accidents happen." Earl's eyes hardened. "Then we document it. Record every threat. Save every message. Build a paper trail so long they'll drown in it." He turned to Darius. "You were there. You stopped it. Are you willing to testify?" Darius nodded without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." "Good. Because they're going to come for you too. They're going to threaten your mother, your future, everything you care about." Earl leaned forward. "You ready for that?" Darius thought about his mother, about Blake's words, about the choice he'd made under that oak tree. "I already made my choice." Earl nodded. "Then let's get to work. Because in exactly 48 hours there's a school board meeting, public forum, televised on local access." He pulled out a flash drive. "And we're going to show them something they'll never forget." Maya looked at the flash drive. The full footage. Every second, every face, every crime. Earl's smile was sharp. "They wanted to bury you, Maya. Instead, they're about to face the whole world." The phone on Earl's desk rang. He glanced at the caller ID and his face changed. "That's the county sheriff's office." "Should you answer?" Earl picked up the phone. "Mitchell." Silence. His expression shifted, hardened, went cold. "I see. And when did this happen?" More silence. No, I understand. Thank you for calling." He hung up slowly. "What is it?" Maya asked. Earl's voice was quiet, too quiet. "That was Sheriff Martinez. The drone footage that Mr. Patterson saved. Someone broke into his house last night, beat him unconscious, took everything. His computers, his backup drives, the memory cards." Maya felt the floor tilt. "They destroyed the evidence." Earl shook his head slowly. "They tried to. But Patterson's smarter than he looks. He'd already uploaded copies to 3 different cloud servers." His jaw tightened. "Mr. Patterson is in the hospital. Broken ribs, concussion. But he's alive, and he's angry." The room went silent. Then Earl Mitchell did something unexpected. He laughed. "These arrogant fools," he said. "They just assaulted a Marine veteran. They just made this a federal case." He looked at Maya. "They wanted to scare us. Instead, they just handed us everything we need to destroy them." He pulled out his phone. "I've got a friend at the FBI. Owes me a favor from a long time ago." He dialed. "Let's see how the Harrisons handle real investigators, the kind they can't buy." Maya watched him pace, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and urgent. And she realized something that made her heart pound. They were actually going to fight. Not just survive, not just endure, fight. And for the first time since Blake Harrison had tied her to that tree, Maya Collins felt something besides fear. She felt power. The FBI arrived in Oak Ridge at 6:47 a.m. the next morning. Two black SUVs rolled down Main Street like a declaration of war. Special Agent Torres stepped out first, a woman with sharp eyes and no patience for small-town politics. Behind her came four more agents, all carrying badges that didn't care about Harrison money or Crawford connections. Earl Mitchell met them on the courthouse steps. "You weren't lying," Torres said, shaking his hand. "I watched that footage 3 times, nearly put my fist through my screen. It gets worse. They attacked my witness, 63-year-old Marine veteran. Beat him unconscious trying to destroy evidence." Torres's jaw tightened. "That makes it federal. Obstruction, witness tampering. Maybe RICO if we can prove coordination." "Oh, we can prove it." Earl handed her a folder. Phone records, text messages, emails between Crawford and the mayor's office. They planned this, Agent Torres. Every step. Torres flipped through the pages. Her expression darkened with each one. "How did you get these?" Earl smiled grimly. "Let's just say not everyone at City Hall is loyal to the Harrisons. Some people have been waiting 15 years for someone to finally fight back." Maya's phone rang at 7:15 a.m. She was sitting in Earl's office trying to eat a stale donut when the unknown number flashed across her screen. Her mother reached for it first. "Don't answer that, baby." But Maya had already accepted the call. "Hello." Maya Collins. The voice was smooth, professional, wrong. "My name is Richard Blackwell. I represent the Harrison family. I'd like to offer you an opportunity." "I'm not interested." "You haven't heard my offer." A pause. $500,000, cash, tax-free, deposited into any account you choose. In exchange, you sign a simple non-disclosure agreement, and this whole unfortunate situation disappears. Maya's hand started shaking. $500,000. That was more money than her mother would make in a decade. That was college paid for, medical school, a new apartment, a life without struggling. "My daughter isn't for sale," Mrs. Collins said loudly, leaning toward the phone. "Everyone has a price, Mrs. Collins. I'm simply trying to find yours." Blackwell's voice never wavered. "Consider what you're giving up. Your daughter's future, your job security, your safety. All of that can be guaranteed with a single signature. And if we refuse, then I'm afraid things will become very difficult. The Harrisons have resources you can't imagine. Legal teams, media contacts, political connections at every level. They can make your lives very, very complicated for a very, very long time." Maya thought about Blake's face, about the rope, about the word liar branded on her forehead. "Here's my counteroffer," she said, her voice steady. "Tell Blake Harrison that I'm coming for him. Tell his father that no amount of money will make me forget. Tell them both that the whole world is about to see exactly who they are." She hung up. Earl looked at her with something like pride. That was either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Good. We're going to need both. The school board meeting was scheduled for 7:00 p.m. that night. By noon, the Harrison machine was in full motion. Local radio stations ran stories questioning Maya's credibility. A newspaper printed an anonymous source, claiming she had a history of making false accusations. A website appeared out of nowhere, filled with lies about her family, her grades, her character. Maya watched it all from Earl's office, feeling her hope drain away with each new attack. "They're destroying me," she whispered. "They're making me the villain." Earl didn't look up from his laptop. Let them. What? Let them attack. Let them lie. Let them throw everything they have. He finally met her eyes. "Because tonight we're going to show everyone the truth. And truth doesn't care about spin." Darius arrived at 2:00 p.m. with news that made Maya's blood run cold. "My mom got fired." He stood in the doorway of Earl's office, his face a mask of controlled fury. His hands were shaking. "What happened?" Maya asked. "The Harrisons called her this morning, said her services were no longer required. 16 years of cleaning their house, washing their sheets, picking up after their messes. 16 years. And they threw her out like garbage. Mrs. Collins rose from her chair. Oh, Darius. That's not the worst part. His voice cracked. When she got home, there was a letter waiting. From her landlord. Says we have 30 days to vacate. Guess who owns the property management company? Harrison Holdings, Earl said quietly. They're trying to make us homeless. They're trying to make us so desperate we'll do anything to survive. Darius's eyes were wet, but his jaw was set. But I'm not backing down. If anything, this makes me want to fight harder. Maya crossed the room and took his hands. We're going to win this. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not. The threats kept coming all afternoon. At 3:30 p.m., a brick crashed through the window of Earl's office. Wrapped around it was a note, drop the case or burn. At 4:15 p.m., Maya's phone buzzed with a photo. Her mother walking into the hospital that morning taken from across the street. The caption read, "Accidents happen." At 5:00 p.m., Darius received a video. His mother crying in their apartment surrounded by boxes. Someone had broken in while she was at the store. They hadn't taken anything. They just wanted her to know they could. Each attack was designed to break them, to make them feel small and helpless and alone. But something strange happened instead. Each attack made them angrier. Earl's FBI contact called at 5:30 p.m. "We've got a problem." Agent Torres said, her voice tight. "I just got pulled into a meeting with my supervisor. Apparently someone very high up is asking questions about our investigation, suggesting we're overreaching, suggesting we back off." Earl's face went dark. "How high up?" "High enough that I can't ignore it. I've got maybe 12 hours before they shut us down completely." "Then we move faster. The school board meeting is in 90 minutes. If we can get everything on record there in public, they won't be able to bury it." "I hope you're right." Torres paused. "Watch your back tonight, Earl. These people play for keeps." The crowd outside the school board meeting was unlike anything Oak Ridge had ever seen. By 6:45 p.m., over 300 people had gathered. News vans from 4 different networks lined the street. Reporters with microphones prowled the crowd looking for interviews. Social media was exploding with updates. Maya pushed through the crowd with her mother on one side and Darius on the other. Earl walked ahead, clearing a path. Maya Collins." A reporter shoved a microphone in her face. "Do you have any comment on the allegations that you fabricated?" "No comment." Earl stepped between them. "My client will be speaking inside." They reached the door. Principal Crawford was waiting. He blocked the entrance, flanked by 2 security guards. His face was arranged in an expression of concern that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm afraid this is a closed session. Only authorized personnel." "School board meetings are public by law," Earl replied calmly. "Step aside." "The board has voted to make an exception tonight, given the sensitive nature of—" "Step aside, Crawford." Agent Torres appeared from the crowd, badge in hand. "Or I'll arrest you for obstruction right here in front of every camera in the state." Crawford's face went pale. His eyes darted to the cameras, to the crowd, to the security guards, who suddenly seemed very small. He stepped aside. The boardroom was packed. Every seat was taken. People lined the walls 3 deep. Cameras pointed at the long table where 7 board members sat, looking increasingly nervous. At the center of the table sat Mayor Harrison himself. He hadn't been scheduled to attend. But he was here now, in his best suit, his best smile, his best mask of respectful concern. And next to him, looking smaller than Maya had ever seen him, sat Blake. Their eyes met across the room. Maya expected to feel fear. Expected her heart to race, her hands to shake, her voice to freeze. Instead, she felt nothing but cold, clear purpose. She took her seat in the front row. The board chair called the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. "We're here tonight to address recent events involving Oak Ridge High School. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that this is a formal proceeding. Outbursts will not be tolerated." She looked directly at Maya. We'll start with a statement from Mayor Harrison. The mayor rose, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. His voice was warm, reasonable. The voice of a man who'd spent 30 years convincing people to trust him. Thank you, Chairwoman. I know this has been a difficult time for our community. What happened at the school picnic was tragic. All of us, especially my family, are deeply troubled by it. Maya felt Darius tense beside her. But I want to be clear about something. My son is not a monster. He's a 17-year-old boy who made a mistake. A serious mistake, yes. But the response to that mistake has been completely out of proportion. The mayor gestured toward the cameras. We have outside agitators coming into our town making accusations, stirring up trouble. We have federal agents questioning our teachers and police officers like they're criminals. We have a young woman who, by her own admission, has a history of conflict with other students. That's a lie. Maya was on her feet before she knew she was moving. The room erupted. Order. The chairwoman banged her gavel. Miss Collins, you will have your turn to speak. My turn. He's lying about me right now. He's standing up there telling this entire room that I brought this on myself, that his son is the victim. Miss Collins, sit down or you will be removed. Earl put a hand on her shoulder. Not yet, he whispered. Let him talk. Let them all talk. Then we show them. Maya sat, but her blood was boiling. The mayor continued for another 10 minutes. He talked about Blake's grades, his athletic achievements, his volunteer work at the church. He painted a picture of a good kid who got caught up in a moment of poor judgment. He never once mentioned the rope, never once mentioned the blindfold, never once mentioned the word liar scrolled across Maya's forehead. When he finished, the crowd applauded politely. The board members nodded. The chairwoman smiled. Then Earl Mitchell stood up. Chairwoman, I'd like to exercise my right to public comment. The room went quiet. Earl walked slowly to the front. He didn't have notes, didn't have a prepared speech, just 15 years of rage and a flash drive in his pocket. The mayor just told you a story. Earl began. A nice story, a comfortable story, a story where his son made a little mistake and everyone overreacted. He paused. But I've got a different story, a true story, and I think you all deserve to hear it. He turned to the AV technician in the corner. Could you connect this to the projector, please? Mayor Harrison rose. Chairwoman, this is highly irregular. Public comment allows for visual aids, Mr. Mayor. Please sit down. The mayor sat. His mask was starting to crack. The room went dark. The projector hummed. And then, the drone footage filled the screen. Maya watched herself being dragged across the grass. Watched Tyler and Connor wrestle her against the frame. Watched the rope go around her wrists, her ankles. Watched Blake step forward with the blindfold. The audio was crystal clear. Open wide, Collins. This is what happens when people forget their place. Someone in the crowd sobbed. Someone else swore. A board member covered her mouth with her hand. You'll always be nothing, black girl. You're just entertainment for people like us. Blake's voice filled the room. His face filled the screen. His cruelty filled every corner, every shadow, every silence. The video kept playing. It showed Blake passing out money. Showed him offering $200 to anyone who would attack the students trying to help Maya. Showed the violence that followed. And then it showed something else. Something even Maya hadn't known about. It showed Principal Crawford. He was visible at the edge of the frame, standing near the maintenance shed, watching, his phone in his hand, not calling for help, recording. Stop the video, Crawford shouted, rising from his seat. This is doctored. This is fake. Someone manipulated. It's not fake. Agent Torres stepped forward, holding up her badge. We've had this footage analyzed by 3 independent experts. It's authentic. Every frame, every second. The room erupted. Parents shouting. Board members demanding answers. Crawford trying to push through the crowd toward the exit. Torres blocked his path. Arthur Crawford, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and failure to report child abuse. You have the right to remain an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney... Crawford's face crumpled. You don't understand. They made me do it. The Harrisons, they... Tell it to a judge. The handcuffs clicked shut. Maya watched her principal being led away and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just emptiness where fear used to live. But the night wasn't over. Mayor Harrison was still standing, still smiling, still convinced he could survive this. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, raising his hands for calm. "Obviously this is disturbing footage. And if my son's behavior was as severe as it appears, he will face appropriate consequences. But let's not lose sight of the bigger picture here." The bigger picture. Darius was on his feet now. "Your son tied a girl to a tree. He wrote liar on her forehead. He tried to destroy her. And you're talking about the bigger picture. Young man, I understand you're upset, but my mother lost her job because of you. We're being evicted because of you. You've spent the last 3 days trying to bury this threatening witnesses attacking a 63-year-old Marine veteran in his own home. Those are very serious accusations. Do you have any proof?" A new voice cut through the chaos. "I do." Everyone turned. A woman was walking down the center aisle. Middle-aged, well-dressed, her face pale but determined. "My name is Patricia Simmons. I've been Mayor Harrison's personal assistant for 12 years. Her voice shook, but she kept walking. "And I have emails, dozens of them, showing exactly how this cover-up was organized, who made the calls, who paid for the threats, who ordered the attack on Mr. Patterson." She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "It's all here. Everything. I made copies before they could erase the servers." She looked directly at Mayor Harrison. "You destroyed my daughter's life 10 years ago, Richard. Another girl who said no to your son. Another girl you buried. But you won't bury this one." The room went silent. Maya stared at the woman, at the envelope in her hands, at the look of pure terror spreading across the mayor's face. "Patricia." His voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done a decade ago." She handed the envelope to Agent Torres. "I'm telling the truth." Torres opened the envelope, scanned the first few pages. Her expression hardened into something almost frightening. "Richard Harrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to obstruct justice, witness intimidation. And," she flipped another page, "fraud, embezzlement, and what appears to be tax evasion on a massive scale. This is outrageous!" The mayor tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. "I'll have your badge, I'll have your career, I'll—" The handcuffs clicked shut. Blake watched his father being led away. For the first time all night, he looked scared, really scared. The arrogance was gone. The smirk was gone. There was just a boy who had finally run out of protection. Torres turned to him. "Blake Harrison, you're under arrest for assault, false imprisonment, and inciting violence. I'm a minor. You can't... You're 17, old enough to be tried as an adult, which given the severity of these charges is exactly what's going to happen." She nodded to another agent who stepped forward with cuffs. Blake looked at Maya. For just a second their eyes met. She expected to feel triumph, victory, the satisfaction of watching her tormentor finally face justice. Instead, she felt tired. So tired. Like she'd been running for years and had finally stopped. "This isn't over," Blake said as they led him away. "My lawyers will—" "Your lawyers can talk to the federal prosecutor." Torres cut him off. "I hear she's very interested in meeting you." The doors closed behind them, and just like that it was over. The crowd sat in stunned silence for a long moment. Then slowly, people began to clap. One person at first, then 2, then 10, then the entire room. Maya stood in the middle of it, tears streaming down her face, her mother's arms around her, Darius on one side, and Earl on the other. They had won. Against money. Against power. Against a machine designed to crush anyone who stood in its way. They had won. But even as the applause washed over her, Maya knew this wasn't really the end. Blake would have lawyers. The Harrisons would have friends who hadn't been arrested yet. The fight would continue in courtrooms and depositions and appeals. And somewhere deep inside, in a place she didn't want to visit, Maya knew that some wounds don't heal with verdicts. Some wounds stay forever. She looked at the empty seats where Crawford and the Harrisons had been sitting. She thought about all the other girls, the ones who came before her, the ones who didn't have drone footage, or Earl Mitchell or Darius Washington, the ones who had been buried and forgotten. Patricia Simmons had mentioned a daughter. Another girl who said no. How many others were there? How many more were out there right now, trapped in their own Oak Ridges, praying for someone to believe them? The applause faded. People began to file out. Reporters shouted questions that Maya didn't answer. Earl guided them through the crowd out a side door into the night air. "What happens now?" Maya asked. Earl looked at her. His eyes were tired, but there was something else there too. Something that looked almost like hope. Now we make sure this never happens again. Not here, not anywhere." He put a hand on her shoulder. "You started something tonight, Maya. Something bigger than Blake Harrison or this town or any of us. You showed people that fighting back is possible. That truth can win." Maya looked up at the sky. The stars were out bright and cold and impossibly far away. "I just wanted to survive," she said quietly. "That's how all revolutions start." Earl smiled. "One person who refuses to be silent. One voice that says enough. You were that voice, Maya. And now the whole world is listening." In the parking lot, Mrs. Collins held her daughter tight and cried. Darius stood guard, watching the shadows, ready to protect them from threats that might never come. And Maya Collins, 17-year-old survivor warrior, stood in the darkness and wondered what kind of world she would wake up to tomorrow. Whatever it was, she knew one thing for certain: she would never be silent again. The morning after the school board meeting, Maya woke to a world that had completely changed. Her phone showed 347 unread messages. Her email had crashed from the volume. 3 news vans were parked outside her apartment building, and a reporter was already knocking on the door at 6:15 a.m. Maya Collins, can we get a statement?" Mrs. Collins pulled her daughter away from the window. "Don't answer that. Don't talk to anyone without Earl present." "Mom, they're everywhere." "I know, baby. I know." The phone rang. Earl's number. Maya answered immediately. "What's happening?" "Turn on the news, any channel." She grabbed the remote, clicked to the first station she found. Her face filled the screen. The footage from the school board meeting was playing on loop. Her testimony. The drone video. The moment Crawford was arrested. The moment the mayor was led away in handcuffs. The anchor's voice cut in. "This morning, the small town of Oak Ridge is reeling from what many are calling the biggest scandal in the state's history. 3 arrests, federal charges. And at the center of it all, a 17-year-old girl who refused to stay silent." Maya sat down slowly. Her legs wouldn't hold her. "This is insane." "It's about to get more insane," Earl said. "I've had calls from CNN, Fox, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Everyone wants your story. Everyone wants an interview. I don't know if I can." "You don't have to decide right now. But Maya, you need to understand something. You're not just a victim anymore. You're a symbol. What happens next isn't just about you. It's about every kid who's ever been bullied, silenced, threatened. They're watching you. They're waiting to see what you do." Maya closed her eyes. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. "What do you think I should do?" Earl paused. "I think you should tell your story, all of it, in your own words, before they twist it into something else." The first interview happened at 2:00 p.m. that afternoon. A national morning show had sent a crew to Oak Ridge. They set up in Earl's office, clearing away the clutter, adjusting the lights, positioning Maya in a chair that felt too big for her body. The interviewer was a woman named Sandra Chen, famous for her tough questions and tougher follow-ups. She had a kind smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Are you ready?" Sandra asked. Maya looked at her mother seated just off camera. At Darius standing by the door. At Earl, arms crossed, watching everything. I'm ready. The camera light turned red. Maya, let's start at the beginning. What happened at that picnic? Maya took a breath. And she told the truth. She told them about Blake in the cafeteria, about the water on his shoes, about the whispered threat that no one else heard. She told them about the notes in her locker, the menacing texts, the way the entire school turned its back on her. She told them about being dragged to the oak tree, about the rope, the blindfold, the marker on her forehead. She didn't cry. She'd cried enough. Now she just spoke clear and steady, letting her words carry the weight. And what was going through your mind when they tied you up? Maya paused. I thought I was going to die. Not physically, maybe, but everything else. My dignity, my future, my hope. I thought they were going to destroy all of it, and no one would ever know the truth. But someone did stop them. Yes, Darius Washington. He risked everything to help me. His mother's job, his family's home, everything. Sandra leaned forward. There are people saying this was exaggerated, that it was a prank that got out of hand. What do you say to them? Maya's jaw tightened. I say watch the video. Watch Blake Harrison's face while he's tying me up. Watch him right on my forehead. Listen to what he says. She paused. And then tell me it was just a prank. The interview aired that night at 8:00 p.m. By 8:30, it had been viewed 2 million times. By midnight, it was the top trending topic in the country. And by morning, Maya Collins had become a name that everyone knew. But with fame came enemies. The first attack came at 9:00 a.m. the next day. A website appeared seemingly from nowhere, dedicated entirely to destroying Maya's credibility. It featured doctored photos, fake text messages, and anonymous sources, claiming she had a history of lying, cheating, and manipulating teachers for better grades. Within hours, it had been shared hundreds of thousands of times. Mrs. Collins found Maya staring at her laptop, face-pale, hands shaking. Baby, don't look at that. It's all lies. They're saying I made it up for attention. They're saying I wanted this. They're saying... Maya's voice cracked. They're saying I deserved it. Nobody deserves what happened to you. Nobody. But the damage was spreading. Comment sections filled with hate. Social media exploded with accusations. Cable news pundits debated whether Maya was a victim or a con artist. The Harrison family still had friends. And those friends had money. Earl called an emergency meeting at 11:00 a.m. We knew this was coming, he said, pacing his office. They can't fight the evidence, so they're attacking Maya's character. Classic playbook. Can we sue them? Mrs. Collins asked. We can try, but lawsuits take time. By the time we get to court, the narrative could already be set. So what do we do? Darius spoke up from the corner. We fight back. We find other victims. We prove this wasn't isolated. Earl stopped pacing. What do you mean? Patricia Simmons said there were others. Girls who came before Maya. Girls who were buried. Darius stepped forward. If we can find them, if we can get them to talk, we prove a pattern. We prove this wasn't just one kid making a mistake. We prove it was a system, a machine, operating for years. Earl stared at him for a long moment. That's actually brilliant. So let's do it. Finding the first victim took less than 4 hours. Her name was Jessica Monroe. She was 26 now, living 3 states away, working as a paralegal. She had attended Oak Ridge High 12 years ago, and she had a story. Earl called her at 3:47 p.m. Ms. Monroe, my name is Earl Mitchell. I'm representing Maya Collins in the... I know who you are. I've been watching the news. Her voice was tight, controlled. I've been waiting for this call for 12 years. You were a student at Oak Ridge. I was a victim at Oak Ridge. Blake's older brother, Derek. Same tactics, same family, same cover-up. She paused. They paid my family $50,000 to stay quiet. My father thought he was protecting me. Instead, he buried me. Would you be willing to talk on camera? A long silence. I've spent 12 years trying to forget. 12 years pretending it didn't happen. 12 years watching Derek Harrison become a state senator while I wake up screaming 3 nights a week. Her voice hardened. Yes, I'll talk. I'll tell everyone exactly what that family is. By the end of the day, they had found 3 more. Rachel Kim, age 29, a freshman when Blake's father was in high school. Tamara Williams, age 31, targeted by Blake's uncle. And Maria Santos, age 24. Blake himself, 6 years ago, when he was just 11 and already learning the family business. 4 women, 4 stories, 4 decades of Harrison cruelty. And all of them were ready to speak. The press conference was scheduled for 10:30 a.m. the following day. Earl had rented a conference room at the courthouse. Every major network sent cameras. The room was packed with reporters, photographers, and curious citizens who had lined up since dawn. Maya sat at the center of a long table. To her left were Jessica, Rachel, Tamara, and Maria. To her right were Darius Earl and Agent Torres. Mrs. Collins sat in the front row, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Earl approached the microphone. Good morning. We're here today to present evidence of a pattern. A pattern of abuse, cover-up, and corruption that spans 4 decades and implicates one of the most powerful families in this state. He gestured to the women beside Maya. These women have come forward at great personal risk to share their stories. Each of them was victimized by a member of the Harrison family. Each of them was silenced through threats, bribes, or intimidation. And each of them has carried that burden alone until today. The cameras clicked. The reporters leaned forward. We'll start with Jessica Monroe. Jessica rose slowly. Her hands were trembling, but her voice was clear. 12 years ago, I was a sophomore at Oak Ridge High. Derek Harrison was a senior, captain of the football team. His father was on the city council. His uncle was the principal. She took a breath. He cornered me after a game, in the locker room. No witnesses. No cameras. The room went silent. He told me I should feel honored, that he was doing me a favor. When I said no, Her voice broke. He didn't take no for an answer. Someone in the audience gasped. Afterward, I went to the principal, Crawford. He told me I must have misunderstood. He told me Derek was a good boy from a good family. He told me to think very carefully about making accusations that could ruin someone's future. Jessica looked directly at the cameras. I was 15 years old. I was bleeding. And the man who was supposed to protect me told me to keep my mouth shut. The silence in the room was absolute. One by one, the other women shared their stories. Rachel, Tamara, Maria, each one different, each one the same. The same family, the same tactics, the same machine grinding up anyone who got in its way. When Maria finished speaking, Maya stood. I know there are people watching who don't believe us, who think we're lying, who think we're doing this for attention or money or revenge. She paused. I want to speak directly to them. She looked into the camera. 2 weeks ago, I was tied to a tree in front of 200 people. I was humiliated, degraded, treated like I was less than human, and then the people who were supposed to protect me tried to make it disappear. Her voice grew stronger. I'm not here for attention. I'm not here for money. I'm here because this has to stop. Because somewhere out there right now, there's another girl being told to keep her head down. Being told that if she just stays quiet, everything will be okay. Being told that her voice doesn't matter. Maya's eyes were blazing now. I'm here to tell her that's a lie. Her voice does matter. The truth does matter. And if nobody else will fight for her, then I will. We all will. Because we are done being silent. The applause started slowly. Then it built. Then it roared. Maya sat down, her heart pounding, her hands shaking. Beside her, Jessica reached over and squeezed her hand. "Thank you," Jessica whispered. "Thank you for being brave enough to start this. I couldn't have done it without all of you. That's the point. None of us could do it alone. But together, we're unstoppable." The Harrison family's response came at 4:00 p.m. that afternoon. A team of lawyers held their own press conference at a hotel across town. 8 men in expensive suits, faces arranged in expressions of righteous indignation. "Our clients categorically deny all allegations," the lead attorney announced. "These accusations are part of a coordinated campaign to destroy a family that has served this community for generations. We will be pursuing defamation suits against every individual who has made false statements." He held up a thick folder. "We have evidence that Maya Collins has a history of attention-seeking behavior. We have evidence that Earl Mitchell is a disbarred alcoholic with a personal vendetta. We have evidence that the so-called victims were coached and compensated for their statements." The cameras flashed. "The Harrison family will not be intimidated, they will not be silenced, and they will be vindicated in court." Maya watched the press conference on her phone, sitting in Earl's office. "They're going to sue us. Let them try." Earl was already on his laptop typing furiously. "Every lawsuit means discovery. Discovery means subpoenas. Subpoenas mean more documents, more witnesses, more evidence." He looked up with a grim smile. "They're playing checkers. I'm playing chess. But what if they win? What if they destroy us?" Earl stopped typing. He turned to face Maya directly. "You want to know a secret about bullies, about people like the Harrisons?" Maya nodded. "They're cowards, every single one of them. They prey on people they think can't fight back. People without money, without power, without connections." He leaned forward. "But the moment someone stands up to them, the moment someone refuses to back down, they panic. They make mistakes. They destroy themselves." "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching them do it for the past week. Every threat, every cover-up, every attack on you has only made things worse for them." He smiled. "They're drowning Maya, and they don't even know it yet." The trial was scheduled to begin in 6 weeks, but in Oak Ridge, justice came faster. At 8:00 a.m. the next morning, the school board held an emergency session. It lasted exactly 12 minutes. Principal Crawford was officially terminated. His pension was revoked. His teaching license was permanently suspended. The superintendent was asked to resign. 3 board members who had voted to silence Maya were removed from their positions, and Oak Ridge High School was placed under state oversight for the first time in its history. Maya heard the news while eating breakfast with her mother. "It's really happening," Mrs. Collins whispered. "They're actually being held accountable." "It's not enough," Maya said quietly. "Crawford is out. The board members are gone. But Blake is still fighting. The Harrisons are still fighting. This isn't over." Her mother reached across the table and took her hand. "Maybe not. But baby, look how far you've come. 2 weeks ago you were alone. Scared. Nobody believed you. Now the whole country is watching. Now people are losing their jobs. Now federal agents are building cases." She squeezed Maya's fingers. "You did that. You." Maya looked at her mother's face. The pride there, the love, the absolute faith that had never wavered. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom." "Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know." Mrs. Collins smiled. "You always have been." The threats didn't stop. At 2:00 p.m., Maya's email was hacked. Personal photos were posted online. Intimate details of her life were spread across message boards. At 4:30 p.m., someone slashed the tires on Mrs. Collins's car. At 7:00 p.m., a brick came through their apartment window. No note this time. Just the message. Agent Torres arrived at 8:15 p.m. with 2 FBI agents. We're moving you to protective custody. Tonight. What? Mrs. Collins stepped back. No, this is our home. Ma'am, with respect, your home isn't safe. The Harrisons still have resources. They still have people willing to do their dirty work. Until the trial is over, we need to keep you somewhere secure. Maya looked at the shattered window, at the brick on the floor, at the glass scattered across her mother's favorite armchair. Where would we go? A safe house, location undisclosed. You'll have round-the-clock protection. Mrs. Collins was shaking. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe we have to flee our own home because… Mom! Maya put her hands on her mother's shoulders. It's okay. We'll be okay. This is temporary. How do you know? Because we've already won. They're desperate. They're scared. That's why they're doing this. Maya looked at Torres. When do we leave? Now. Pack what you need. We don't have much time. They left Oak Ridge at 9:30 p.m. Maya watched the town disappear through the back window of an unmarked SUV. The streets she'd walked every day. The school that had nearly destroyed her. The oak tree where everything changed. She didn't know if she'd ever come back. Beside her, her mother slept exhausted from the stress. In the front seat, Torres spoke quietly into her phone, coordinating the next phase of the investigation. And somewhere in the darkness, Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Darius. You're not alone. Whatever happens, you're not alone. I'll find you. I promise. Maya typed back, I know. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she added, Thank you. For everything. His response came immediately. You saved me first. Remember 2 years ago. Empty classroom. You said I wasn't alone. Now I'm saying it back. And I mean it. Tears blurred Maya's vision. She had spent so long feeling invisible, worthless, like she didn't matter to anyone except her mother. But she mattered to Darius. She mattered to Jessica and Rachel and Tamara and Maria. She mattered to Earl and Torres and Patterson. She mattered. And that was something no amount of Harrison money could take away. The safe house was 200 miles from Oak Ridge. A small cabin on a lake surrounded by trees accessed by a single road that wound through miles of wilderness. 2 agents were stationed outside. 2 more inside. The windows were bulletproof. The doors were reinforced steel. It was a prison designed to keep them safe. Maya spent the first day staring at the ceiling. She thought about Blake, about where he was now, whether he was scared, whether he felt any remorse for what he'd done. She thought about Crawford, about how long he'd known, how many victims he'd helped bury over the years. She thought about the trial, about sitting in a courtroom, about facing Blake again, about telling her story one more time to a jury under oath while his lawyers tried to tear her apart. The thought made her sick, but it also made her stronger. Earl called at 3:00 p.m. on the second day. Good news and bad news. Good news first. The FBI found more evidence. Financial records showing the Harrisons paid off at least 12 families over the past 20 years. Hush money, bribes, threats. It's all documented. Maya exhaled. And the bad news? Blake's lawyers are pushing for a change of venue. They're arguing he can't get a fair trial in Oak Ridge. If the judge agrees, this thing could get delayed for months. Can they do that? They can try. We're fighting it, but… Earl paused. Maya, I need you to be prepared. This process is going to take longer than any of us want. The Harrisons have deep pockets. They'll use every legal trick in the book to drag this out. I don't care how long it takes. I'm not giving up. I know you're not. That's why we're going to win. But that night alone in her room, Maya broke down. She cried for everything she'd lost. Her innocence, her peace, her faith in the world. She cried for her mother who had worked so hard for so long, only to end up hiding in a cabin in the woods. She cried for Darius, who had sacrificed everything to help her. And she cried for herself. For the girl who had just wanted to get through high school, who had just wanted to make her mother proud, who had never asked for any of this. When the tears finally stopped, Maya made herself a promise. She would see this through, no matter how long it took, no matter what they threw at her, no matter how many times they tried to break her. She would not stop until Blake Harrison faced justice, until the machine that had protected him was destroyed, until no other girl had to go through what she had gone through. She would fight, and she would win. Maya picked up her phone and called Earl. "I want to testify first, at the trial, before anyone else." "Maya, that's not usually how." "I don't care about usually. I want to look Blake in the eyes and tell him exactly what he did to me. I want the jury to see my face, to hear my voice, to understand that I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor." Earl was quiet for a moment. "Okay," he said finally. "You want to go first? You go first. We'll make it happen." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. The hard part is still coming." Maya looked out the window at the dark lake, the darker trees, the stars scattered across the sky like broken glass. "I know," she said. "I'm ready." The trial began on a cold Monday morning, 6 weeks after the school board meeting that had changed everything. Maya sat in the hallway outside the courtroom at 8:15 a.m., her hands folded in her lap, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her mother sat on one side, gripping her purse. Darius sat on the other, his knee bouncing with nervous energy. Earl paced in front of them, checking his phone, reviewing notes, muttering to himself. "Remember what we talked about," he said, stopping in front of Maya. "Answer the questions directly. Don't let them rattle you. Don't let them make you angry. The jury needs to see who you really are." "I know. And when Blake's lawyers come after you, and they will stay calm, they're going to try to twist your words. They're going to try to make you look like the aggressor. Don't give them anything." "I know, Earl." He stopped, looked at her. Really looked. "You ready?" Maya thought about everything that had led to this moment. The cafeteria, the picnic, the rope, the blindfold, the word liar branded on her forehead. The threats, the attacks, the weeks of hiding, the nights of crying herself to sleep. She thought about her mother, about Darius, about Jessica and Rachel and Tamara and Maria, about every girl who had been silenced before her. "I'm ready." The courtroom doors opened at 9:00 a.m. The room was packed, every seat taken, cameras positioned in the back, reporters filling the press gallery. And at the defense table, flanked by 4 lawyers in $1,000 suits, sat Blake Harrison. He looked different, thinner, paler. The arrogance that had defined him was still there, but it was brittle now, cracked around the edges. When Maya walked past him to take her seat, their eyes met. She expected to feel fear, expected her heart to race, her breath to catch, her courage to falter. Instead, she felt nothing but cold, clear purpose. Blake looked away first. The judge entered at 9:15 a.m. The Honorable Margaret Chen, a 63-year-old woman with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been appointed by a governor who owed nothing to the Harrisons. She had a reputation for fairness, and she had already denied 3 motions to dismiss. "This court is now in session," she announced. "We are here for the trial of Blake Harrison, charged with assault in the first-degree false imprisonment, incitement to violence, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Mr. Mitchell, you may call your first witness." Earl stood, buttoned his jacket. "The prosecution calls Maya Collins." Maya rose. The walk to the witness stand felt like a mile. Every step echoed, every eye followed, every camera tracked her movement. She sat down, placed her hands flat on her thighs, looked at the jury, 12 faces, men and women, young and old, black and white and everything in between. They would decide Blake's fate. They would decide if her suffering meant anything. The bailiff approached with a Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Earl approached the stand. Maya, I know this is difficult, but I need you to tell the jury exactly what happened on the day of the school picnic. In your own words, take your time. Maya took a breath, and she began. She told them about the cafeteria, about Blake's demand for an apology, about the water on his shoes and the threat he whispered in her ear. She told them about the notes in her locker, the texts, the way the whole school turned against her. She told them about the picnic, about the announcement that cleared out all the teachers, about being grabbed, dragged, tied to the frame. She told them about the rope cutting into her wrists, about the blindfold suffocating her, about Blake's voice in her ear telling her she was nothing. She told them about the word liar scrolled across her forehead, about the crowd laughing, about the phones recording, about feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. Her voice never wavered. Her eyes never dropped. She spoke for 47 minutes without stopping. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Earl nodded. No further questions. Blake's lead attorney rose at 10:05 a.m. His name was Charles Whitmore, Harvard Law, 30 years of experience. A reputation for destroying witnesses on cross-examination. He approached Maya with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Miss Collins, you've told us quite a story, a compelling story, a story that paints my client as a monster. He paused. But I wonder if we might explore a few inconsistencies. There are no inconsistencies. Let's see about that. He picked up a folder from his table. You claim that my client threatened you in the cafeteria, that he whispered something in your ear that no one else could hear. Is that correct? Yes. But isn't it true that you and my client had a history of conflict, that you had previously accused him of things that were never substantiated? That's not true. No. Whitmore held up a document. I have here a statement from a teacher at Oak Ridge High, Mrs. Patricia Vale, who says that you complained about Blake multiple times in the past, that you accused him of stealing your lunch money, of spreading rumors about you, he did those things. Did anyone see him do them? Maya paused. No, but... So you made accusations that couldn't be verified, just like you're making accusations now. The drone footage verified everything. The drone footage shows a chaotic situation. My client was present, yes. But the footage doesn't prove intent. It doesn't prove that Blake organized anything. It shows teenagers behaving badly. It doesn't show a mastermind. Earl stood. Objection. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. Mr. Whitmore asked questions. Whitmore smiled thinly. My apologies, Your Honor. He turned back to Maya. Miss Collins, isn't it true that you deliberately provoked my client in the cafeteria, that you threw water on him, that you insulted him in front of his friends? He grabbed me. He threatened my mother's job. I defended myself by throwing water on him, by telling him no. Whitmore circled the witness stand. You've become quite famous since this incident, haven't you? Television interviews, magazine covers, a book deal, I'm told. I haven't signed any book deal. But you've been approached. Maya hesitated. Yes. And isn't it true that your fame, your platform, your entire future depends on people believing your story? Isn't it true that you have every incentive to exaggerate, to embellish, to turn a schoolyard prank into a federal case? It wasn't a prank. Maya's voice hardened. He tied me to a tree. He wrote on my face. He tried to destroy me. He was 17 years old, a child, making a mistake. A mistake is forgetting your homework. A mistake is saying something you regret. Maya leaned forward. What Blake did was calculated, planned, deliberate. He announced it days in advance. He made sure there were no teachers around. He brought rope. He brought a blindfold. He brought a marker. That's not a mistake. That's premeditation. Whitmore's smile flickered. No further questions. The prosecution rested its case at 4:30 p.m. on the third day. Earl had called 27 witnesses, teachers who had seen Blake bully other students who had been shaken down for lunch money, parents who had complained and been ignored, and the 4 women who had come forward with their own stories of Harrison family abuse. Each testimony was a brick. Each document was mortar. Together they built a wall that Blake's lawyers couldn't climb. But the defense wasn't finished. Whitmore called his first witness at 9:00 a.m. on the 4th day. The defense calls Richard Harrison. The mayor walked to the stand in handcuffs, escorted by 2 federal marshals. His orange jumpsuit clashed with his silver hair. His face was gaunt from weeks in custody, but his eyes were still dangerous. "Mr. Harrison," Whitmore began, "you've been charged separately from your son, but you're here today to provide context, to help the jury understand who Blake really is." "Blake is a good boy," Richard said, his voice steady despite everything. "He made mistakes. He's not perfect, but he's not the monster they're making him out to be." "And what about the allegations against your family? The claims that this is a pattern of behavior? Lies, all of it. Disgruntled employees, jealous competitors, people who want to tear down what we've built." Richard looked at the jury. "My family has served this community for 4 generations. We've created jobs, built schools, funded hospitals, and this is how we're repaid, with accusations, with character assassination." Earl rose for cross-examination. "Mr. Harrison, you say your son is a good boy, that he made mistakes." Earl held up a photograph. "Is this a mistake?" The image showed Maya tied to the frame, blindfolded, the word liar visible on her forehead. That's not... Is this a mistake?" Earl held up another photo. Maya's wrists raw and bleeding. "I'm not responsible for..." "Is this a mistake?" A screenshot of Blake passing out money, offering $200 to anyone who would attack the students trying to help. Richard's face went pale. "I want to speak to my lawyer." "Answer the question, Mr. Harrison. Is this a mistake?" "I didn't know." Richard's composure finally cracked. "I didn't know what he was planning. I wasn't there." "But you knew afterward, didn't you? You knew, and you tried to cover it up. You threatened witnesses. You destroyed evidence. You ordered an attack on a 63-year-old veteran." "I never ordered." "We have the emails, Mr. Harrison. We have the phone records. We have testimony from your own assistant." Earl stepped closer. "You didn't just fail to stop your son. You actively protected him. You participated in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. You tried to destroy a 17-year-old girl to save your family's reputation." Richard Harrison stared at Earl Mitchell with pure hatred. "You're a drunk, a failure, a disgraced, and you're going to prison." Earl turned to the jury. "No further questions." The defense called Blake Harrison at 2:30 p.m. Blake walked to the stand, slowly. His handcuffs removed for the testimony. He was wearing a suit his lawyers had chosen, dark blue conservative, designed to make him look like a choir boy. But his eyes gave him away. Even now, after everything, there was arrogance there. Defiance. The unshakable belief that he was untouchable. Whitmore guided him through a carefully rehearsed narrative. Blake expressed remorse. He claimed the situation got out of hand. He said he never meant to hurt anyone. He said he was sorry. The words were perfect. The delivery was flawless. And none of it reached his eyes. Earl approached for cross-examination at 3:15 p.m. "Blake, you've told us you're sorry, that you never meant for things to go this far." Earl paused. "But I'm curious about something. When you tied Maya Collins to that frame, what exactly did you intend?" Blake shifted in his seat. "I just wanted to scare her, teach her a lesson." "Teach her a lesson about what?" About respect." "Respect." Earl nodded slowly. "And when you wrote liar on her forehead, What lesson was that teaching? I was angry. I wasn't thinking clearly. You weren't thinking clearly when you brought rope to the picnic. You weren't thinking clearly when you brought a blindfold. You weren't thinking clearly when you offered $200 to anyone who would attack the students trying to help her. Blake's jaw tightened. I made a mistake. A mistake. Earl walked to the evidence table and picked up a stack of documents. Blake, I have here records of 12 complaints filed against you over the past 4 years. Bullying, harassment, theft, assault. 12 complaints, all of which were dismissed or buried by school administration. He dropped the stack on the table. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Those were all misunderstandings. 12 misunderstandings. Earl shook his head. Blake, I also have testimony from 4 women who were victimized by members of your family going back 40 years. Your uncle, your father, your brother. All of them accused of similar behavior. All of them protected by the same machine. He stepped closer. That's not a coincidence. That's a legacy. Blake's composure cracked. You don't know anything about my family. I know enough. I know that for 4 decades the Harrison family has used money and power to silence anyone who got in their way. I know that girls like Maya Collins were sacrificed to protect your reputation. I know that you grew up believing you could do anything, hurt anyone, and never face consequences. That's not... But here's what I want you to understand, Blake. Earl leaned in close. This is your consequence. This courtroom, this trial, this jury. For the first time in your life, your money can't save you. Your father can't save you. Your name can't save you. You're going to be judged on what you did, not who you are. Blake stared at Earl with undisguised hatred. I want a lawyer. You have 4 of them. They can't help you. No further questions. The jury deliberated for 6 hours and 23 minutes. Maya sat in the hallway surrounded by the people who had carried her through the darkness. Her mother, who had never stopped believing. Darius, who had risked everything to stand beside her. Earl, who had found redemption in her fight. Jessica and Rachel and Tamara and Maria, who had broken their silence to add their voices to hers. Agent Torres paced nearby, phone pressed to her ear. The waiting was agony. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound made Maya jump. Every time the courtroom door opened, her heart stopped. At 7:47 p.m., the bailiff appeared. They've reached a verdict. The courtroom filled in seconds. Maya took her seat, gripping her mother's hand so tight she could feel the bones. The jury filed in. 12 faces carefully blank, revealing nothing. The judge spoke. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreperson stood. A middle-aged black woman with kind eyes and steady hands. We have your honor. On the count of assault in the first degree, how do you find? We find the defendant guilty. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. On the count of false imprisonment, how do you find? We find the defendant guilty. On the count of incitement to violence, how do you find? We find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy to obstruct justice, how do you find? We find the defendant guilty. Maya's vision blurred. Her mother was crying. Darius was crying. Somewhere behind her, she heard Jessica whisper, "Thank God. Thank God." Blake sat frozen at the defense table, his face ashen, his hands gripping the edge of the table like he might collapse without it. For the first time in his life, Blake Harrison had lost. The judge spoke again. The defendant is remanded to custody pending sentencing. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell, and Maya Collins finally broke. She sobbed into her mother's shoulder, months of fear and anger and hope and despair pouring out of her in waves. She felt Darius's hand on her back, felt Earl's presence nearby, felt the weight of everything she had carried, finally lifting. You did it, her mother whispered. Baby, you did it. We did it. Maya managed through her tears. All of us. The sentencing hearing was held 4 weeks later. Blake Harrison was sentenced to 8 years in state prison with possibility of parole after 5. He would be required to register as a violent offender. He would never be allowed within 500 feet of Maya Collins or her family. Richard Harrison received 12 years for conspiracy obstruction and witness tampering. Arthur Crawford received 7 years for his role in the cover-up. Tyler Hayes and Connor Mills each received 3 years in juvenile detention, followed by 5 years probation. And the machine that had protected them, all the network of money and power and silence that had crushed so many before, was finally irrevocably destroyed. 3 months after the trial, Maya returned to Oak Ridge. She walked through the gates of Oak Ridge High for the first time since the picnic. The hallways looked the same. The trophy cases, the donor plaques, the championship banners. But everything had changed. New teachers filled the classrooms. A new principal sat in Crawford's old office. A new code of conduct hung in every hallway with a clear message: bullying will not be tolerated. And on the wall outside the main office was a plaque that hadn't been there before. It read, "In honor of Maya Collins and all who stand against injustice." Maya stared at it for a long moment. "You okay?" Darius stood beside her, his hand finding hers. "Yeah." She squeezed his fingers. "I think I am." Graduation was held on a sunny afternoon in late May. Maya sat with her classmates wearing her cap and gown, listening to the speeches and the applause. Her mother was in the front row, camera ready, tears already streaming. When they called her name, Maya walked across the stage to thunderous applause. But it wasn't just the diploma they were giving her. The principal, the new principal, a woman named Dr. Carter, who had been brought in specifically to clean house, handed Maya the microphone. "Maya Collins has been selected as this year's valedictorian," Dr. Carter announced. "She has asked to share a few words with her classmates." Maya looked out at the crowd, at her mother's shining face, at Darius's proud smile, at the teachers and parents and students who had watched her fight and survive. She thought about everything she wanted to say, about justice, about courage, about the price of silence and the power of truth. But in the end, she kept it simple. 3 months ago, I was tied to a tree. I was humiliated, degraded, treated like I was less than human. She paused. I thought my life was over. I thought nobody would ever believe me. I thought I would have to carry that weight alone forever. The crowd was silent. But I was wrong. I wasn't alone. I had people who believed me, people who fought for me, people who stood up when standing up meant risking everything. She looked at Darius. Some of them were friends. Some were strangers. Some were people I'd never even met before that day. But they all had one thing in common: they refused to look away. They refused to stay silent. They refused to let injustice win. Maya straightened. So here's what I want to say to everyone listening. If you see someone being hurt, don't look away. If you hear someone crying for help, don't stay silent. If you know something is wrong, don't pretend it isn't. Her voice grew stronger. Because the only thing evil needs to win is for good people to do nothing. And there are more good people in this world than there are monsters. There always have been. We just have to be brave enough to prove it. She held up her diploma. This isn't just mine. This belongs to everyone who fought, everyone who believed, everyone who refused to give up. She smiled. And to anyone out there who's going through what I went through, who thinks they're alone, who thinks nobody cares, I want you to know something. Maya's eyes found the camera, broadcasting the ceremony live. You matter. Your voice matters. Your pain matters. And somewhere out there right now, someone is waiting to stand beside you. You just have to be brave enough to ask. The applause started slowly. Then it built. Then it roared. Maya stepped back from the microphone, tears streaming down her face, and walked off the stage into her mother's arms. 5 years later, Maya Collins stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. She was 22 now, a graduate of Howard University, a law school student, a published author, a voice that millions of people knew and trusted, and she was about to give the speech of her life. "Thank you all for being here today," she began. "I'm here to announce something that I've been working toward for 5 years. Something that started in a small town in America with a girl who said no." She looked out at the crowd. Senators, representatives, activists, journalists. And somewhere in the back, her mother, Darius Earle, and the 4 women who had broken their silence to join her fight. Today, I'm proud to announce the passage of the Maya Collins Act. This legislation requires all public schools to implement comprehensive anti-bullying programs. It mandates reporting of serious incidents to state authorities. It creates a national database to track patterns of abuse, and it ensures that no school administrator can ever again bury a complaint to protect the powerful. The applause was deafening. This law won't solve everything. It won't undo the pain that so many have already suffered. But it's a start. It's a promise. It's a message to every child in America that their safety matters more than anyone's reputation. She paused. 5 years ago, I was tied to a tree. I was told I was nothing. I was told I would be forgotten. Maya smiled. They were wrong. I am not nothing, and I will never be forgotten. Because I am not just one girl anymore. I am every girl who has ever been silenced, every voice that has ever been buried, every survivor who refused to give up. She looked directly into the cameras. To the bullies of the world, I have a message: your time is over. We are watching, we are listening, and we are coming for you. She straightened. To the victims, I have a different message. You are not alone. You never were. And together, we are unstoppable. The crowd rose to its feet. Flashbulbs exploded. Applause thundered. History was being made. And Maya Collins, the girl who had been tied to a tree and told she was nothing, stood at the center of it all and smiled. Because she knew the truth. She had never been nothing. She had always been a seed. And seeds, when buried in darkness, don't die. They grow. That night, Maya sat on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with Darius beside her. The city stretched out before them, lit up like a constellation brought to earth. The White House glowed in the distance. The Capitol dome shimmered. And somewhere in that maze of power and politics, a law with her name was changing the world. You did it, Darius said quietly. We did it. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. All of us. He took her hand. The same hand he had held in that safe house. The same hand he had gripped during the trial. The same hand that had never let go. Remember what you told me once, in that empty classroom when I thought my whole world was falling apart? Maya smiled. You're not alone. You're not alone. Darius nodded. That's what saved me. That's what started all of this. 3 words, spoken by a girl who barely knew me. He turned to face her. I've spent 5 years trying to pay that back, and I still don't think I ever will. You don't owe me anything. I know. That's not why I'm here. He squeezed her hand. I'm here because you're the bravest person I've ever known. Because when I look at you, I see everything that's good in the world. Because, Darius. Yeah. Maya leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle, soft, a promise rather than a question. When she pulled back, Darius was smiling. What was that for? For everything. Maya looked out at the city. For never giving up on me. For standing with me when everyone else walked away. For being the person who finally made me believe that good people still exist. Darius pulled her close. I'll never walk away, not ever. As long as you need me, I'll be right here. I know. Maya closed her eyes. That's why I love you. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the lights of the city, listening to the distant sounds of traffic and conversation, feeling the weight of everything they had survived and everything that lay ahead. Maya thought about the oak tree, about the rope, about the word liar that had once branded her forehead. She thought about Blake serving his sentence in a state prison, finally facing the consequences he had spent his whole life avoiding. She thought about her mother, who had sacrificed everything so Maya could have a future. She thought about Earl, who had found redemption in her fight. She thought about Jessica and Rachel and Tamara and Maria, who had finally been heard after decades of silence. And she thought about all the girls she would never meet, the ones reading her book, watching her speeches, hearing about the law with her name, the ones who were right now at this very moment finding the courage to speak up. Maya Collins had been buried in darkness, but she had grown toward the light, and now, standing at the center of a movement, she had started with nothing but her voice and her courage. She understood something that the Harrisons and the Crawfords and all the monsters of the world would never grasp. Power isn't money. It isn't influence. It isn't violence or threats or silence. Power is truth. Power is the voice that refuses to be silenced. Power is the seed that grows in the darkness. And Maya Collins was proof of what that power could do. She looked at Darius, at the city, at the future stretching out before her. And she smiled, because they had tried to bury her. They had tried to silence her. They had tried to make her disappear. But Maya Collins was still here, still standing, still fighting, and she would never, ever stop.